I'm going to check next to Olivia in this line. And now that this is checked, we'll do send invites. That says now this is sent. So now at this point, nothing is going on. We're just going to have to wait for them to respond. So now I'm going to go back and open Olivia's email. There we go. Click respond now. That's going to populate the ID for her. So maybe keep notes empty this time. Hit submit. And at this point, because that's submitted, if I go back to my spreadsheet, you'll see that response is here, maybe, and notes is empty just because there are no notes. And as you send it to a bunch of people, their responses will populate here. In this video, let's make an RSVP invite sort of system using Google Sheets and Google Forms. We're going to need something to send emails out for invites. Then we're going to need a form for them to respond to those invites. So first, we're going to need some unique IDs for our invites. So let me actually add a few columns here. I'm going to add them in the beginning. I'll call it invite ID. Then we'll have some notes. You could even have more columns here, depending on what you need about these invites, but I will also add one more column here, actually two. Let's call one of these send, and this one sent on, or something like that. So the idea is going to be is that here I want to add some checkboxes. So I'm going to go under data validation, switch to checkbox, reject input, hit save. So basically, we're going to want to be able to check the box if we want to send invites to those people. Now, before I get to sending invites out, let's deal with invite IDs. I'm going to create a script to generate those IDs. If you don't want to do that, you could also just do something like this, type 1 and 2, select and drag it down. But I want to have a button so I can just click and it will generate this invite IDs for me. So the way I'll do that, I'll go to extensions and app script, and I'll name this project. I will change this function name to generate invite IDs. And what we're going to need first, we're going to have to get this range in which we're going to have to generate IDs. So we'll go with their email for this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to move this email column here. So we're going to basically check what's the last line with an email. And based on that, we're going to say that's our last row. To do so, we're going to go to that E column. So I'll take an SS variable and that will store our spreadsheet. So I'll go spreadsheet app, get active spreadsheet. And then we'll get the actual worksheet. So that will be get sheet by name. We could also, I guess, do get active sheet just to do it for our active sheet for this one. That's fine. So active sheet, that would mean in this case, this tab that I'm on, invites. So in this active sheet, we want to go to the last row in this E column. So what I'll do WS get range. And for our row number, we'll take the WS and get max rows. And for our column number, we need this column E, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So from that cell, we'll do this get next data cell. And as a direction, we're going to use that spreadsheet app dot, and let me just zoom out a little bit, dot, and here I'm going to do this direction dot up. What this is going to do, it's basically going to go all the way down here to the last row, and then it's going to do command up or control up to get to this cell. And this will be the row we want to consider the last row. So what we'll do get row. And we'll store that in a variable here. I'll call it LR for last row. So now that we have our last row, we'll say we're going to need to put IDs starting from here, ending here. So if our last row here is 9, we're going to need 8 IDs because the first row is headers. What we'll do, we'll create an array here to hold those IDs. And it will be an empty array by default. And now what we'll do a loop, a for loop. And we'll basically start with an I variable. We'll make it a 0 to begin with. And then it's going to go until that last row. And we'll do I++ to just go to the next I up. So basically, if this last row is 9, right here, 9, it's going to start 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it's going to stop. And therefore, it's going to generate 9 IDs, but we need 8. For that reason, we'll start here from 1 instead of starting from 0. And that way, we're going to get the right amount of IDs. So now, every time we generate an ID, we'll add it to this invite IDs. The way we're going to generate an ID, we'll take this utilities, and this one has this method get UUID. And we'll take that unique ID and we'll store it in this array. And we'll do that by doing invite IDs.push. And I'll put it in an array so I can then add it to my spreadsheet. And UID is what's going to be there. So right now, if I just do a quick console log so you can see what's going on here, if I just take a look at this invite IDs, I'm going to run this function. We're going to have to take care of these permissions. It says S is not defined. Let me just go up and see where I did S. Apparently here, this should have been WS, get range, referring to this variable on top. Save that, rerun again. And as you can see, I got this list of unique IDs. Now I'm going to grab those IDs and basically just put them here. And the way we'll do that, we'll take the worksheet and do get range and start from row number 2. Row number 2 because this is where it starts. And column number 3, 1, 2, 3. And for number of rows, we'll take this invite IDs and do .length to calculate the length. And then for number of columns, it will be just one column of those IDs. So we'll take that and do set value. Actually set values, not value. And we'll place those invite IDs right here. And I'm going to comment this console log. So at this point, what should happen if I run this? Those IDs would be placed here. Let's try that. If I go back and take a look, see I got those unique IDs. Now they overflow this cell. So let's just make it bigger a little bit. Here we are. Now I want to add a button so I can press and generate these IDs whenever I need them. So I'm going to clear these. What we'll do here, we'll simply go to insert and do a drawing. We'll just add one of these text boxes. I'll add some background color to this and some font color. And also just center this. Something like that should be good enough. So I'm going to save and close. That's going to add this. I can now drag it over here. Now, if I go to this right side of this, you'll see that gives me that finger. I can click on that and assign script. And then here as a script, I'll go back and copy this function name without parentheses. and paste it over here. Press OK. So now what should happen if I just go ahead and click on this button? It should run the script and populate those IDs for me. So this took care of our IDs problem. Next, we want to send emails out to these people. So we want to send emails to emails here based on what's checked in this column. So a lot of these are basically just fake emails. I do have access to one of these, so I'm going to check this one for now. But the idea is going to be that we should be able to check multiple and send emails. So let's go grab that information. And the way we're going to grab this information, if I just go to this top left cell and do Command A or Control A, see it grabs this data, also including this empty rows because it grabs this checkboxes here too, which is fine. So that's the way I'm going to grab the data. So I'll go back here. Let's close this. We're done with this. I'm going to keep this in its own script. I'll make another script. So for this one, we're going to again grab the spreadsheet and the worksheet. So for that, I'll go here, copy. I'll actually just copy all of these 3 lines and paste it here. Again, we'll get the spreadsheet, the worksheet, and the last row using that emails column, which is number 5 column. I'm not sure if I'm going to need this last row, but for now, let's keep it there. Now let's do that Control A thing. So we're going to do that ws.getRange. We'll grab that A1 cell, the first cell, and we'll do get data region. And that should grab the whole region. And after that, we'll do get values to grab all those values to an array. I'll store this in a variable. I'll call it data. And if you remember, when I did this Command A, that grabbed this whole thing, including these empty cells. I don't really care about clearing them because I'm going to filter this data by checkboxes anyways, because I only want to send these emails to the ones that are checked. Therefore, I'm going to now filter that data using this column and make sure I only keep the ones that are checked. So that means now we'll create another variable here. And we'll take that data and apply a filter to it. And for each row in that data, we want to filter by column number 1. And in our indexes in JavaScript, it starts from 0. So that's column number 0. And I want to make sure I only filter to the ones where that equals true. So at this point, if I do console log that filtered data, we should be able to see it's only our checked lines. So if I run this, you'll see how I got this line for Olivia, which is the line that's actually checked. Now, if I go ahead and check Donna too, if I go back and rerun this, you'll see we got both of those lines for Donna and for Olivia. I'm going to go back to just Olivia again, and that should filter our data to the actual lines that are checked. So now that we have our data, we can now loop through that data and basically send emails out. Now, before we get to sending emails out, we have to create some sort of HTML email for this. So I'm going to go ahead and create an HTML file and call this email. And that should create this main body of this email. And here I'm going to start by adding a paragraph. And we'll basically add new text. So we'll do like Dear Olivia Perez. And then if we want to go to the next line, we'll just do another paragraph here. Please respond to your invitation by following the link below. And this is where the link is going to go. For now, I'll just put link. Now we're going to have to make sure we get a good link. And we're also going to make sure we get the right name and the last name. Now, in order for us to do that, we're going to have to use templates here. So to use templates, I'm going to take this Olivia first and just do some what's called scriptlets. And what you do the special tags like this. And basically that part is going to be replaced by some variables. So I'll call this one first name. We're going to need a similar one for our last name. And then we're going to need another one for our link. Now, for a link to be clickable, we're actually going to need an HTML hyperlink. And the format for an HTML hyperlink is this, where this is going to be the actual text for the link. And here, right in those quotes, we're going to have the actual hyperlink itself. So that's what I need to change. So I'm going to go ahead and take that link part and paste another one of the scriptlets here. And over here, we'll just say link. Now, if there is some other information here you want to change, have some dynamic data, you can also add more of these. For me, that's going to be it. So now that I got this, I need to somehow pass all these things like this first name, last name, link to this templates. So for that, we're going to go back to our script here, and we're going to start looping through this filtered data. So I'm going to take filtered data, and I'm going to do for each loop. And for each row, I'll just call it R, we'll run some code, which is going to go in this bracket. So what we're going to do, we're going to create an HTML service. And here we could do create HTML output from, actually not output, but template from file. And that file will be this email HTML file. So I'll just do email. Let's actually call this variable HTML template. Now on that HTML template now, we're going to assign some variables. And those are going to be those exact variables I just did here, like first name. And all of this is case sensitive. So you want to be careful. So this should be like the first name of that person. So for now, I'll just say A. We'll just take care of it. Let's just do 1. That's fine. And I need to do this for the other 2 variables the same way. So I'll just go back, grab the last name here. We'll go back here, link here. And once we do get those things here, then we're going to do HTML service. And we'll take that HTML template and we'll do evaluate, which will now generate some HTML for us. And finally, we're going to need that as text. So we'll do get content. And that will give us that HTML as string text. So we can use it in our email, basically. So now, before we get to emailing this out, let's take care of these. Right now, I just have this once, but what we actually want, we want some information from our data. So we'll take this R variable, which refers to the row. And in that row, we'll say which column we're going to need that information from. So our first name here is starting from here in our data. Everything starts from 0 index. So it's going to start 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that would be 6. Now, last name would be 7. Now, to make this a little easier to read, what we'll do, we'll just declare some variables. And instead of doing this 6 and 7 here, we'll just take this, paste it here, take this, paste it here. Now the link, we're going to generate later. For right now, I'll just do like a pound key. We'll come back to this link once we actually build the Google form for this. But for now, that's all I got. So finally, once we have this HTML, let's just call it HTML. Now we should be able to send some emails out using Gmail app or Mail app. So if you have Gmail under your Google account, you can use that. That usually tends to work better. I'm going to use Mail app for this. Your code is going to be exactly the same. You can use Mail app or Gmail app here. So here we're going to have to basically add some information. We're going to need the email of the person to be able to send these out. Now let's just see if there is an example here so I can copy. See this one that has the HTML body and all of this. So I'm just going to scroll down, copy some of this. About that much is enough. The rest I'm just going to ignore. I'll just paste it here. And I'm going to get rid of some of these. Basically close that curly bracket and send all of this to one line so it's easier to basically see what's going on here. Like so. So basically here in this line, we have who we're sending this to, what the subject line is going to be, and the actual email body. And for email body, see, I'm doing HTML, which is this HTML that we generate over here using this HTML file and some of our spreadsheet data. So for subject line, I'm going to just say respond to your invite. And for email, who I'm sending this to, I'm going to get that data again from one of these columns. Therefore, I'm going to use this R square bracket thing. And instead of first name, we'll do email column. And obviously that variable here doesn't exist, so we're going to have to make that. And emails are here, so that's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's my email column. So hopefully with this done, I should be able to now send emails out based on what I check here. Now let's first of all try to test this and see what happens. So I'm going to add another button and assign this function to that button. So I'll just go here, insert another drawing, and we'll do another one of these. Some font color, some centering, make it bold. You can change the font, whatever, doesn't matter. I'm just going to save and close. Put this here on the side and then add that script. So I'll go back, copy this, paste it right there, hit OK. So now I have this checked for Olivia. Let's click send invites and see what happens. See, it's giving me this. This is the same like permission box that I used to get here when I used to run. So I'm going to have to do that. So now let's click send invites. See, it says finished script. Apparently, it looks like there are no errors. Let me check that email and see what happened. Looks like it went to this promotions. See, it says respond to your invite. If I click on this, it says, Dear Olivia Perez, all of this, respond now. Now, this link, if you remember, that's not going to work, but I was able to replace first and last names with the correct first and last name. Now, one part that was not great is this, that it says me. So I think there is another thing we can change there to take care of that. So let's go back here. Now in this send email, let me just do this on a separate line so I can get that autocomplete. I think it's called name or something. There it is. See this name? That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to copy that, go here and add that as one of these. And this is basically who it's coming from. So I'll just keep it simple like that. Get rid of this. So now at this point, let me just comment this line. I should be able to go click on that and send another email. Let me actually change this name a little bit. So now it should send it with this first and last name. So I'll go back to this email. Well, I already had one, so now it has like 2 of them, but you can see the second one is coming from that inviter. And then this one is for Olivia Smith. So it works just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this so it's easier to look at this next time. Go back. This one, for some reason, still says running, but we're done. We took care of sending our emails out. And if we check multiple of these, it's going to send it to multiple people. Now, before we come back and modify the rest of this, let's now go ahead and build the form. So I'm going to leave all of this. I'll probably add another tab here and go to Tools and create a new form. That's going to be attached to this spreadsheet. In this form, you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it default. Here, the first question is going to be invite ID. Doesn't have to be the first question, but that's what I'm going to do. And it's going to be a short answer. That's fine and required. I'm going to add another line here. And here we'll do multi-choice or drop down, I guess. Maybe that's better. And basically we'll say, are you attending? And then we'll do this yes, no, maybe. It's great. We'll just do that. So yes, no, and maybe. And again, required. And for me, I also wanted to have, see it as notes. If you want more information, you can ask more information in this form. But for me, that's all I'm going to do. So I'm going to add one more field. And this is going to be that paragraph style. And I'll call it notes. And this one, I'm not going to do required. So it's fine like this. So that's going to be pretty much my form. So we should be able to get the link to this form by going to send and grab this link right here. You can do shorter URL if you want. Now, the problem with this form is going to be if I just open this, we don't want our user to type that crazy invite ID that's coming from our system here. We want somehow to automatically populate that invite ID here for that user. So they only have to just check this and hit submit and be done with this. Now, the way we're going to do that, if I go back, I'm going to close this. If I go back to that form here, there is a way to pre-fill some fields if you want. And for that, we're going to click on this little icon here and go to this get pre-filled link. And what we're going to do here, instead of this invite ID, I'm just going to type ABCD and I'm going to do get link. See, copy link. So I copied it. So at this point now, if I just, first of all, close this and paste that link here, you'll see how it does this ABCD directly in the field. Now, if I go back to my script and I just create a variable here, I'm just going to call it form URL. And in quotes, I'm going to paste that link. And you'll see what happened here. It has this form link, and all the way here, it has this equals and then ABCD as a part of this link. So that's the part we're going to have to change. So the way I'm going to do that, I'll go right here. And instead of regular quotations, I'm going to use backticks, which is that character next to number 1 on your keyboard. And between those, I'll copy and paste that same link. And then I'm going to carefully select that ABCD part, put it in brackets, should be just 1 here, and $sign in front of it, like this. And I'm going to erase this variable on top that I did. Now here, inside of these brackets, we can pass some dynamic content, like the ID or the actual information we want to pre-fill, which will actually be the ID that comes from here, this invite IDs. So for that, we're going to do this R square bracket thing again. I'm going to paste it here. And we're going to have to pass the right column. So I'm going to call that something else. And that is, if we start counting from here, is 0, 1, 2. So we'll do 2 here. And we'll pass that invite ID right here inside of those square brackets for that R. So now that we got this, that should now automatically generate a link with that right ID in the form. So let's test this and see if this actually works. So I'm going to go back. We're going to send another invite. Let's go check out our Gmail account. See, it says respond to your invite. And now it has this respond now link. If I click on it, you'll see how it automatically populated that ID here. And if I go back and take a look to make sure that's the right ID, that's the one that starts with this AF, that should be this one, the one for Olivia, which is accurate. So you can see how we're able to actually populate that particular information here. Let's go ahead and submit this form. And at this point, let's go take a look at our spreadsheet and see what happened. So if I go here, now we have this form responses tab, which has that information, including that invite ID. I'm going to rename this RSVP. So now what I want to do, I want to actually move this information here, where it says notes, and we actually need another column apparently here, which is going to be the actual answer. And because I did that, now I have to actually take care of the fact that my columns have moved one right. This email, first and last name. So I'm going to have to go back to my script. So 6 is 7, 7 is 8, and 4 is 5. Invite ID should remain the same here, 0, 1, 2. So now I want this response to auto-populate, and I'm going to do that simply by writing a formula. So I'll just do a VLOOKUP. I'll look up these IDs, and I'll just drop the end reference, comma, and I'm looking that up from here, from this RSVP, and I'm doing that from this ID and these two columns. I'll just select that. I'll press F4 to make this absolute reference, just for good practice. And then I'll do comma 2 for the second column in this selection, and comma 0 for exact match. I'm going to do Command-Shift-Enter or Control-Shift-Enter to make this array formula and hit Enter. And you should see how that yes for Olivia now populates here. Now for the rest of them, there are no responses. There are no matching responses. We probably don't want these NAs here. So instead what we'll do, we'll just wrap this in an if error function. This way we won't have to deal with those. And then finally, we also probably want to move this formula 1 up in this cell so it doesn't get on the way. So for that reason, I'll grab this same formula that I had, Command X to cut it, and I'll go here where it says response. I'll delete that and paste that formula. And if I enter right now, it will just populate them, but it's not going to match the right row number. I'll go back here and add a curly bracket opening, and I'll add that column name, response, in quotes. Then I'll do a semicolon to add the rest as a different row. And I'll go after this if error and VLOOKUP, which will be right before this parentheses closing, and close that curly bracket like this. And if I hit enter, Now we're going to have that response text as a header on top, and then the rest will populate here for us. Now, if I wanted also to have notes, then I'm also going to just grab that same formula, copy it, go back here and paste, and then I'll rename this response to notes. And then here, instead of column number 2, I'll change to column number 3, which will be 3 in this array selection, third column for our VLOOKUP. I don't need this, so I'm going to delete that. So there it is. That should populate response and notes automatically. So now as different users go to their email and they respond, their responses will be populated here, and therefore they will go here next to their actual invite record. Now the last thing I want to do here is to add this sent on. So basically, once I send my invites, if I did email this person, I would like to just add something here that says it was sent on this date. So for that, I'll go back to my script, and first we'll just create a variable to generate the date. We'll call it current date, time, I guess. And for that, we'll just do new date in JavaScript. This should be const. There it is. Now, once I have the date, the next thing I want to do is that if I already have some sent on stuff here, so if there's some information that this was already sent to somebody, I would like to keep that information. So therefore, I need to just grab this info from the current sent on column. So I'll go here and we'll just get that data someplace here. It doesn't matter. So we'll take that WS and do get range. And we're going to start from row number 2. And the column for this is number 2 as well. The number of rows here is going to be up to this point. And that's where I would use that LR variable right here. But I need to do -1 because that LR is going to give me 9, but I want actually 8 rows because the first one is headers. So -1 here and just 1 column. And I'm going to do get values, and that should get that array of current sent data. Now within this, in the lines where we actually send emails out, we need to modify that to be the date. And to do that, we need the actual position for this, which we currently don't have in this filtered data. So we don't know which position we're on when we get inside of that filtered data. So we want to somehow add that information to this so we know which line we should be adding this to, which position. And the way I'll do that, I'll go back to this data right here, and we'll basically add that extra column with positions. And the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to go here and add .map. And for each row, well, we're going to need the row and the index, and we can get it from here. I would be that index, which is going to start from 0, and it's going to go up, which is pretty much what I want. Except that I'm going to have to match this starting point to this starting point, because when we started to select this data, I clicked in this first cell and did Command A, which starts from this first line. And when I did the sent on, I started from line 2 and went down. So we want to start from line 1. So therefore, I'll change this to 1 and 2. And then I don't need this -1 anymore. So we're going to grab the whole thing. Now let's add those i's here. So the way we're going to do that, we're going to return the row itself, plus we're going to concatenate that position I to it, which will be an extra column in the end of the whole thing. So now this will give us that extra column, which will be the position we're going to need. Which means now we're going to go back here to this filtered data. And we're going to do a try catch. So try catch means we're going to try to email. I'm going to put that here. And I'm going to do catch any errors. So we'll see if we can try to send the email. And if it fails, then we'll go to this catch block. So if we are able to actually send that email out, then after that, we would like to go to that position in our data, which we actually got in our current sent data right here. So we need to find in that current sent data what row we want to actually modify. So we'll just type row here. We'll figure that out in a second. Here, we'll simply just put that current date time variable. So basically just to have the date and time when this was sent. Now, the only thing here is to modify this row, and that row is going to come from this R. Only we need the column number now for that index. And we're going to do index call, I guess, like that. Now that index column is going to be one column after all our columns. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 10. So now I'm going to grab that and put it here. So in that index, we'll add that date. And later on, when we're done, we'll basically just write it to the spreadsheet. So we'll do get range. We'll apparently start from row 1, similar to how I got it here. I'm basically just going to copy and paste the same thing, except that instead of get values, we're going to do set values. And our values are going to be whatever that modified information here is, so that current sent data. So let's see if this works. If not, we're going to have to do some console logs to see what we need to fix about this. But I'm going to save this, go back, and simply just, this one is checked. Let's actually just go ahead and remove this RSVP out of here so it's clear. And we're going to go ahead and send invites again. So apparently I got an error. It says don't match the method under set values. And that's most likely because this current sent data is a two-dimensional array. So it has a row number, but it also has a column number. And the column number should be 0. So we're going to have to do this. Let's save this. Now that we refer to the column number 2, let's try this again. It did say finished, but I don't see a date here. Now I want to see if that email was sent. Looks like we're good with emails. Let me just get rid of all of these. We're going to have to go back and see why exactly that didn't write to our spreadsheet. And for that, I'm going to have to do some console logs. So I'm going to go ahead and add a console log here to just see what I get. So I'm going to do that R index column, and I'll also console log the R itself. And finally, I'm also going to console log on top here this filtered data to see what it looks like. So I'm going to save all of that. I'm going to run it from here. Again, we need to make sure that this is checked, which it is. So let's take a look. So we got this, and it says the index here is 4, which would be the row number basically. So that would go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That seems to be correct. Then we get that same 4. So that means we do get the right position. But somehow this current sent data doesn't have that information. So why don't we just try to console log that here, maybe. And again, I'm going to resend this to see what happens. So apparently it says sent on, and then that's it. So something is wrong with this array. And if I scroll up, how we got this. This last row, apparently, that doesn't seem to work. So let's scroll up and see what's going on right here. So we're getting it from column number 5. Oh, I think what happened here, this column may have shifted. Is it still column number 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this should be column number 6 to get the last row. Well, let's try to rerun this and see if that is better. So now we get this, which means we should now have this. Great. So I'll take this and make it date time. So we have both date and time. Now that is going to be that script time that may or may not match your actual real time in your spreadsheet. If you really care about it, you can use utilities date format to reformat that. But for me, that took care of what I wanted. So I'm going to close this and this. And finally, just test this whole thing after it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this. I'm going to go back and clear my email from all of this invites. And then I'll go back and rerun this just for testing purposes to see what happens. So I'll take this. Let's just zoom out a little bit. I'm going to check next to Olivia in this line. And now that this is checked, we'll do send invites. That says now this is sent. So now at this point, nothing is going on. We're just going to have to wait for them to respond. So now I'm going to go back and open Olivia's email. There we go. Click respond now. That's going to populate the ID for her. So maybe keep notes empty this time. Hit submit. And at this point, because that's submitted, if I go back to my spreadsheet, you'll see that response is here, maybe, and notes is empty just because there are no notes. And as you send it to a bunch of people, their responses will populate here. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.